Welcome to Where Are They Now?, where we reach into the archives of Lenape, Shawnee, Cherokee, and Seneca high schools and invite selected alumni to share their memories and fill us in on their career paths after commencement. Since Lenape's first graduating class in 1961, Shawnee's in 1972, Cherokee's in 1978, and Seneca's in 2005, over 77,000 individuals have received diplomas from these four schools. Join us now for another Lenape District alumni interview on Where Are They Now? Hello and welcome to another edition of Where Are They Now? I'm Mark Sonsini, a 1996 graduate of Cherokee High School, and today we'll be talking with another Cherokee alum, this time from the class of 1993. She is a parenting editor for Highlights for Children magazine and resides in Bethlehem, PA. I'd like to welcome Christine McDevitt Burke to the show. Christine, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited to hear about your career since Cherokee, but first let's go back and talk about your time at Cherokee a little bit. Tell me about when you came to Marlton.
So I initially went to elementary school at Evans Elementary from about second grade to fifth grade. And when I had Mrs. Simpkin in fifth grade, we moved mid-year to Texas for a couple of years. And then I moved back to Marlton right after my freshman year. So I started at Cherokee the first day of sophomore year. And it was really cool because I had made friends at Evans and had lost touch. But then when I got to the halls of Cherokee again, I had familiar faces. And so I got to reconnect with people that I was friends with. And then I graduated in 93.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And probably, I imagine at some point you would see some people and be like, oh, that's you.
Yes.
Everybody changes a little bit between elementary school and high school.
I remembered them, but when you're the kid that moves away, like you're kind of forgotten a little bit. So yeah. I would have to say, remember we were in Mrs. Ferroni's second grade class, or we were this, and I would have that Evans connection to kind of make friends. And it was pretty wild to see how people had changed over the years.
That's cool. So let's talk about some of the teachers that had an impact on you at Cherokee. One was Miss Kathy Mayer. Tell me about her.
Yep, I had her for English, and I remember we started with Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities in one of her classes, and I was just completely immersed in Dickens and the way she was so animated, and she always talked with her arms up here, and she would dance around the room, and she would really bring the stories and the chapters to life for us, and it was just a really fun class. I had a lot of friends in my class, and Kathy was also our band front, instructor or administrator. So we spent a lot of time with her off the field, and she really, really worked to get our routines under control, and really did a lot for me in the couple of years I was at Cherokee. She was just a force and so much fun. I'm friends with her on Facebook now, and which is just surreal because when you go from teacher authority figure to sharing stuff on Facebook with each other, it's been kind of a fun evolution.
That's neat. And we'll talk about your activities, including band front and stuff, in just a second. But I also want to mention Mr. Dennis Benedetto was a teacher that had an impact on you as well.
Yes, he was a tough cookie. He was a tough grader. I again had him for English. And I remember midway through the semester, I had turned in a paper that was not up to his standards. And I remember I got a lower grade than I had anticipated. And I remember being just disappointed in myself. And, so when it came time to write the next paper, I still remember I looked at the grade, and in big letters across the top, he said, now this is an honors English paper. And he really he just was really good at giving honest, feedback about writing, and it was the first time he was basically my first real editor, the real time when you think you've turned in something that's amazing and an editor just kind of, the red stripes all over it. And so he really instilled not only the drive to do well with writing, but also recognizing that my writing isn't just, that it can always be better. And
Right.
I can still see the way he wrote in big letters, this is an honors paper. And it just felt like such a win.
And some of the, excuse me, some of the activities you mentioned, band front. You were the captain for not from '92 to '93. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I had lived in Texas, I was also a cheerleader, but cheerleading was a way different thing in Texas. And, I was like looking for something to combine like a little bit of cheerleading, but also performing because I loved theater. So I tried out for band front. I had a friend who was into it and said, you should try it. And I did. And it was so much fun. There's nothing like being under Friday Night Lights and the sound of a band cadence. My husband still teases me whenever I hear one, like if we're driving by or if we're at a football game for my son's high school. And it's like it brings something out in me. And the year that I was captain, our team, we just had an amazing band, an amazing dance team. And we won best band front at Haddonfield, which was like at the time, it was like a big deal to win Haddonfield. And
Yeah.
I can just remember just marching onto that field and just nailing it. It was so much fun. It was probably the best part of my social life in high school was just the friends and the time on the field.
Very cool. And you also you mentioned theater. You were in My Fair Lady, Brigadoon, Guys and Dolls. Tell me about that. Did you have major roles? Were you in the ensemble?
Oh, ensemble for sure. Frank Guarini, he was wonderful. He included all of us, and he would find places for all of us in the shows, and we just had so much fun. And ensemble was great because you were in so many scenes, and you got to hear the music from the classics and watch the shows come to life. And again, it was the center of my social life. All of my friends who were either in band front were also in the shows, and we used to mess around backstage. And oftentimes when you're in the ensemble, you have long chunks between big numbers. So we would get off stage, and at the time, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a 7-Eleven downtown and on Main Street, and we used to jump in the car in our costumes and run down to go get Slurpees. And we thought we were hilarious, and stage makeup and buying Slurpees while the show was running. We thought we were rebels, which looking back on it was ridiculous, but it was fun. We had a great time.
Very cool. All right, so you graduate Cherokee in '93, you go to the College of New Jersey, and you major in nursing. Tell us about how you came to that decision to pursue that major. The teachers you mentioned, Miss Mayer, Mr. Benedetto, English teachers, and that seemed to be something that was important to you. How did you end up doing nursing?
Well, I had entertained going to college for an English degree or journalism. And at the time, as parents sometimes do, they were concerned that I would not be able to make a living as a starving writer or journalist. And so the words "you need to get a real job" came out of their mouths. And upon thinking about it, I had always been interested in biology and the sciences. And I loved the concept of nursing. I knew I didn't want to go to medical school. I didn't want to commit that much time and effort. And nursing just felt like a really good fit for my personality and the things that I was interested in. And I went to Trenton State, or at the time it was Trenton State, and now at the College of New Jersey, and enrolled in the nursing program and absolutely loved it. Like, it was exactly what I needed to do at the time at that age. It was a good fit for me.
Good. So you graduated in '97 from TCNJ, and you start work at Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia in the ICU, and you were there for 6 years. I imagine that's a lot of stress, and you saw a lot of very interesting things there.
Yep. And an interesting tidbit about that job, my first job at Jefferson, the only reason I got that job was because the year I graduated, there was a glut of nurses. There had been a nursing shortage about 4 or 5 years prior to me going to school. And by the time I graduated, there were more nurses than jobs. And I had put my name on a waiting list at all the hospitals in Philadelphia and hoped for the best. And Mary Marsick, the nurse recruiter at Jefferson, had graduated from the College of New Jersey, and she went down the list and picked the College of New Jersey graduates, and we were the only ones that got interviews. So it was my college affiliation that actually got me in the door. which I am always grateful for. And my first job was on a migraine headache unit. And then I switched to about a year. So I got my med surg experience there. And then I moved into the ICU, and it was a level 1 trauma regional spinal cord center. So yeah, we saw the sickest of the sick. And it was a really, really intense and incredible place to earn your chops as a nurse, because there's just no room for error. And so I learned really, really strong ICU skills and just basic nursing skills, like right out of the gate.
Yeah, talk about being thrown into the fire, right?
Exactly.
Did that take its toll on you after a while, or?
Nursing is a 24-hour-a-day job. There's the benefit in that when you leave the hospital, like when you're home, you don't have paperwork to do when you get home, and but you're always thinking about your patients, and it's a shift work, so night shift, sleep schedules. I was able to work nights because at the time I didn't have kids. It was easier to do it, but yeah, it does take a toll, and you do have some tough cases. There are cases I still think about. There are people that I still wonder how they're doing, and but there's a privilege to being in the room when someone is passing away, or there's a privilege to being in a room when a baby is being born. And I had that privilege every day when I would go to work. It was a privilege to be with people at the worst times of their lives, which sounds weird, but it's true. Like when you really think about, like, this is a moment for this family, this is a big deal, and you're a part of it, it makes it easier.
Sure. Okay, so you were nurse for about 6 years, and then in March of 2013, things kind of went in a different direction for you, and you took a leap of faith and started your blog, Keeper of the Fruit Loops. So tell us first, what made you want to make that change in your career?
Sure. Well, I also, after I left the ICU, I worked for many years as a substitute school nurse in my kids' schools. So I never really stopped nursing. I didn't work full time, but I was still working part-time as a school nurse. And this was around the time when Facebook became kind of much more ubiquitous in our lives. And I would write little silly stories on my personal Facebook, and a friend of mine was at work. At the time she worked at a little local newspaper, and she kind of laughed out loud about something I said on Facebook, and her editor said, what are you laughing at? She said, my friend Christine, she writes these stories about her kids. They're really funny. And the editor said, well, is she a writer? And she should write for us. And she said, no, she's a nurse. And she said, well, let me talk to her. So the editor called me, and she said, I think you're a writer. And I said, no, I'm a nurse. No. And she said, no. She said, just give me 800 words on anything about parenting, anything, just 800 words. And so I wrote this story called The Day I Almost Got Arrested at Preschool, where my son said something a little unfortunate that could have been misinterpreted at preschool in a not so great way. And I wrote the story about the day that my son said something embarrassing at preschool, and it went viral for their website. It went crazy viral. It was back, before viral was a thing, and everybody was reading it. It was showing up. It was being syndicated across the country. And the editor called me back, and she said, I think you're a writer. And I was like, okay. So I wrote a few more stories for them. And then my husband and my best friend said, you should stop doing that for other people and do your own blog. If this is, you're obviously hitting a mark here, you're onto something. So maybe you should start a blog. And my best friend and I talked about it, and what do we call it? What do I say? And there's a country song where the woman talks about the mom being the keeper of the Cheerios. And I was like, but Cheerios aren't funny. Nobody cares about Cheerios, but people think Fruit Loops are funny. And so that's where Fruit Loops came from. And the point of the blog from the get-go was always going to be about my experience as a parent. It was never to, I had a golden rule that I was never going to make fun of my kids. I was never going to make fun of them. I was going to make fun of my reaction to parenting. The moments where I got caught where unawares, or, the humor that I found in parenting situations. And I called them the Fruit Loops because I didn't use their names on the blog at first. And so they were Fruit Loop number 1 and Fruit Loop number 2. And I just started writing about our adventures.
And you started on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and things almost kind of got shut down before you got even started. Tell us that story.
Yeah, because back in the day, they told you, bloggers were joining social media, and I started my pages, and I basically unintentionally spammed every person I knew by requesting that I sent requests to say, hey, join my page, and I sent it to basically everybody I know, and I was put in Facebook and Twitter jail literally 24 hours after I went live with the blog, and had to this was back when you could get somebody on the phone from Facebook, and somebody had to kind of flip a switch for me, and I was back restored on Facebook about 24 hours later.
And so, at this point, you have thousands of followers on Instagram, on Facebook. Keeper of the Fruit Loops is your name.
Yep.
And since that took off, you've had a lot of even more freelancing opportunities and different things, from editing to social media manager opportunities as a result of this, right?
Yeah. So blogging has evolved an awful lot, and nowadays it's influencers and brands and lifestyle brands. But at the time when I started, that was right around the time when brands were realizing that they could leverage social media for page views and awareness and engagement. And I was very lucky at the time. The mega blog, Scary Mommy, the owner, Jill Smokler, found one of my stories, and she reached out to me and asked, at the time she wasn't able to pay a whole lot for writers, but she said, hey, if you want to write, you can, I see your stuff. And so I started writing for Scary Mommy, and that put my writing on a more a national stage. And it was because they were starting to leverage social media. I had a seat at the table and an early stage from a company that really, really took social media by storm. So I was sitting in on meetings and listening and paying attention to what a major company was doing with social media. And then I was applying it to my Keeper of the Fruit Loops stuff. So I learned about A/B testing, and I learned about algorithms and engagement and impressions, and what really indicates social media success. And so I applied it to what I was doing on my personal blog, and it was successful.
So you got a free education doing that, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it was at a time when we were all learning, because social media, I hate to say kids today, but a high schooler today, it's hard to explain to a high schooler today what social media was like back in 2012 and 2013. It wasn't like it was just a wild, wild west. It was new. It was, people were all trying to figure it out. So it was a really fun time to be in social media, because it was like you're developing it you were part of the inception of it.
And so you mentioned Scary Mommy. Your work's been featured on Huffington Post, Your Teen Magazine, Grown and Flown, and also the Today Show, which you're a contributor for, and then a video that you did with them that was, a pretty big video and got you some more attention as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the Today Parenting team they were very smart. The Today Parents, they started a community of writers like myself who wrote about their families. And there was an early group of us that we joined the team pretty quickly. And we would write content and upload it to the Today Parenting site. And it was just an opportunity for us to share what was on our minds. And the Today Show would share it on their social media, and they would create dialogues centered around our content. And I wrote a story about, and it's such a hot topic, it always is bullying, about the time that in 4th grade, a little girl told the entire class that I wasn't invited to her birthday party, and I wrote the story about how my mother reacted to it. And so I uploaded it to the Today Show site, my little Keeper of the Fruit Loops page that I have with the parenting team. And it was the second most shared story in that entire year. I can't remember if it was 2017, whatever year it was the second most shared story for their entire site, for the parenting site for that year.
Wow.
And because it resonated so deeply with so many people, I called my bully, I gave her the name Danielle, and we all talked about everyone has that Danielle in their lives. Everyone has that person who they remember from their younger years. So it really, really
Sure.
hit. It really resonated. And so the producers came to me and said, we'd like to do a video with you and some other families about your bullying situation. And they took us to Brooklyn and we filmed, and it was a conversation between me and my kids talking about what bullying means to them. And, I told them my story, and it was just a really special, it's probably the most special thing that has come out of my unexpected career change, is getting to do that video with the kids, because the kids were then recognized in their school district by the school board for their work with bullying. And it just was a really unexpected, special memory with the kids.
Very nice. And it must have been, what was it like? That was probably, I'm guessing maybe that was your first real TV production shoot that you were a part of, and having your kids there too with you. And if it was like it appears to be totally unscripted, that must have been a little bit nerve-wracking for you as to how your kids were going to react and what they were going to say.
You can't tell from the footage, but it was a studio in Brooklyn with no air conditioning. It was so hot. It was a brick room, so like my makeup was pouring off my face, and the makeup artist is like touching me up. And my son is now in film school, and he had aspirations for film school. So I look like a rock star mom taking my kid to a studio set in the middle of Brooklyn, and it really was. And I still can't believe it wasn't scripted. Like, they didn't tell us, like, we knew what we were going to talk about, but it really was a genuine conversation between me and the kids. And you're right, like, you just don't know how that's going to go. But it really came out, really, I watch it and I still cry when I see it, because it's just really special. And September is National, I think it's September, it might be October, is National Bullying Month. And so you'll see NBC affiliates will share it occasionally. Like somebody will say, I saw it on NBC 10, Facebook page, or, it gets shared still, because it's just such a universal message.
Yeah, definitely. And especially, in a school community like we are, it's obviously an important topic to talk about. And the video is great. And you're right, it is a tearjerker, so definitely check it out. And through your work with the Today Show, you've been able to meet some celebrities along the way too. So tell us about that.
Well, again, I have to say, major kudos to the Today parenting team. They are wonderful to their writers, and they used to, back in the days when we could get together, they would host get-togethers in the fall or the spring, where they would center it around either a TV show or a premiere of a new launch. And we would get to go and see like the first episodes of This Is Us, and they would have one of the stars from This Is Us there. Or when Kelly Clarkson, I don't think it was when she joined, but it was to promote the new season of The Voice. Okay. They had us into the Today Show studios and took us to lunch, and we had lunch with Kelly Clarkson, who is
very cool, just
like what you see on TV. In fact, my friend sitting next to me, Kelly, noticed my friend's necklace and stopped everything and said, "Girl, I need to know where you got that necklace." And it was just very like down to earth. And we've met the Today Show hosts and the star of New Amsterdam. So it's just it was unlikely, and sometimes I would be in these lunches thinking, I can't even believe, that it just was so surreal, but
yeah,
I just rolled with it.
Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about what you've been doing more recently. You're the parenting editor for Highlights for Children magazine. Tell us about what that's been like for you.
So last year I joined Highlights. They were in the process of revamping their parenting content for their website. They have a parenting website, and they were going through a major overhaul of the site and rebuild. And they hired me to update their content and to start writing and generating content for parents that helps parents feel joyful and optimistic in their parenting, because it's a really tough time right now. Parenting is hard. We're post-pandemic or still in a pandemic, and it's just hard to find those joyful moments. And so we want parents to feel confident about their parenting, that in those small moments that you feel, I don't want to say smug about your parenting, but just those moments when the kids are sharing, you kind of have dinner on the table, and those quiet moments. I always say parenting isn't perfect, but there are perfect moments, and that's what we're working on at Highlights.
And so tell me what it's been like over the past 10 years or so. You've sort of run the gamut from when your kids were young and sharing your experiences along the way as they've grown and you've grown as a parent, and now they're in high school and college, and now you're sort of going back and creating content for parents of younger kids again. What's that been like for you?
It's a very unique position to be in, and I always heard when I was in the trenches with my kids, and I would talk to parents who had teenagers, and about the perspective that comes when you've survived the sleepless nights, you've survived the first round of teaching your kid to drive, and all of those big moments. And I always say that what I would have written about potty training when I was in the trenches is very different than what I would write about it now. And I always try to write it with both lenses, that I don't want to ever talk down to the mom who's in the middle of it and who's like, this is horrible, but I also want to show that there is so much joy in parenting, and so much just so many wonderful, rich opportunities to enhance your time with your kids. And it's Highlights is such a iconic brand too. My kids grew up reading Highlights, so the editor-in-chief, Christine French Cully, her face is in the magazine every month, and my kids grew up seeing her face every month, and now I get to work with her. So it's been a big deal for my kids too. Like I get a subscription to Highlights every month because of my job, and my daughter at 17 takes it right out and lays on the couch and reads it. And so it's been a really kind of nostalgic time, which is really to revisit childhood is nostalgic for me.
And it's helped you keep some of your rock star mom status too.
Yeah, exactly. It's not quite as cool as the studio in Brooklyn, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your family. Your husband, your two kids we know are the Fruit Loops. Tell us a little bit more about them and what they're into.
Yeah. Well, my husband and I met 25 years ago. I met him when I was at the College of New Jersey, and he works here with me in Bethlehem, and my son is in film school in Boston, and my daughter attends high school here. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Shih Tzu Daisy, who lives with us, who is actually in charge of everything, our day-to-day operations here.
Okay, good. It's good to hear that it's in good hands. Tell me about some of your interests when you're not, quote unquote, working. A lot of your, for a lot of years anyway, your personal life was sort of your work life too. But tell us what you like to do in your free time.
Hiking is a big one. Running. I'm big into working out with my friends. That's how I catch up, and that's my social time. A very unexpected hobby came out of the pandemic. I absolutely love puzzles, which is a little dorky, but
That's right.
it's something that calms my mind. It helps me think stories through. It helps me keep my hands busy, so I can, if I'm trying to write something, or if I have a little bit of writer's block, like puzzling helps me work projects through.
Okay, cool. And any plans for the future? What do you see the future holding for you? You want to continue doing what you're doing, or are you thinking about something else? See what happens?
Well, the beauty of having switched careers and, being a nurse and being a writer. You know, I always say nursing is who I am and writing is what I do. So like, if I don't feel locked into, you know, one particular career path.
Yeah.
And but yes, I would love to keep doing writing and creating and you know, flowing with the times, you know, influencing and writing and social media has changed so much in the last 10 years. So just having a seat at the table as things unfold and change is going to be really interesting. And I always joke that I wrote The Keeper of the Fruit Loops for my kids, but I might do Keeper of the Fruity Pebbles for my grandkids. I don't know. So we shall see. We'll see.
I think that'll work. That'll work.
Right.
Okay, so you're on all the socials, right? People can find you there. And what's your website?
It's keeperofthefruitloops.com.
Okay. So yeah, definitely check it out. I know I've been reading a lot of your stuff, and I can relate a lot because my kids are a little bit, just a little bit younger than yours. So it's nice to read about some of the things that, you know, I'm experiencing and going through, and getting your take on it too. So it's very good. Christine, congratulations on a successful career, and thanks so much for joining us today. It's been great catching up with you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And that's all for this episode of Where Are They Now? For other Lenape District alumnus interviews, check us out online at youtube.com/Lenape District TV. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.